Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH the Flame Emperor episode number 18 based on novel. So let's start. Although Xiao Yan had long known from his master Jinlong King that this emperor's blood essence, Su Shuiying, was inevitable, when Su Shuiying said this, she couldn't help but have a black line. Starting from defeating the 7 guardians, the two of them absorbed the troubles caused by the black and white yin and yang hearts respectively. After they got the terrifying skeleton in the stone room, imagine that this was the result of their joint efforts, but in the end, it was cheaper for Su Shuiying, and Xiao Yang also sank his eyes. Xiao Yang, who was originally aching, was also overjoyed when he heard that Su Shuiying took away the blood of the emperor but had to make an agreement with herself. Why are there no traces of the Xiao clan on the Dodi continent? And what is Su Shuiying and the others guarding? The unsolved mysteries have always puzzled Xiao Yang, and now hearing Su Shuiying say this, she can't help but turn her head and stare at her. She must know something. What is the relationship between you and my family? Xiao Yang also asked passionately. If he knew the reason, it would be much easier to walk in Dodi continent, and he wouldn't be like a headless fly. Sorry, I can't tell you this for now. Su Shuiying also refused directly. Sure enough, it still doesn't work. Xiao Yang muttered to himself, and then his fiery gaze also subsided. Then what is the agreement you're talking about? Xiao Yang also returned to normal and said to Su Shuiying. Although the master said that if I meet someone who has the lines on your forehead when I go out, I will bring it back to the family at all costs, and we will protect the extremely important things and return them to your hands. Su Shuiying said slightly. At that moment, the blood-red blood essence that was lying quietly on her jade hand was also collected into a jade bottle by her, and the blood-red essence and blood seemed to be lying in the jade bottle very well behaved. After doing all this, Su Shuiying continued. However, the things we are guarding involve too much, and you can't fight against it at the moment. Su Shuiying also wrinkled her beautiful eyes slightly, although saying this does have some blows to Xiao Yang, but the fact is that he is still too weak, some things are still unknown. Damn it. Then what do you mean? Xiao Yang also said angrily. What kind of medicine does Su Shuiying sell in the gourd? She used to have the strength to suppress Xiao Yang before, and now she has taken away the blood of the emperor alone. The mystery between her and her Xiao clan has not been explained clearly, and Xiao Yang is indeed a little angry. Su Shuiying also seemed to have noticed Xiao Yang's sudden change in face, and then spoke up. However, I believe that those who can be recognized as masters by the fire elves are definitely not mediocre. It's 100 years, and 100 years from now. If you reach Do Immortal, you have the strength to protect that thing. You can burn this lotus leaf to call me, and I will take you. Go back, let you know everything you want to know, and let you take back what belongs to you. If you don't reach it, then it means that you don't have the ability to protect it. I will naturally carry that thing for you, and you will continue to be your prodigal son. Su Shuiying said that the green lotus platform that her jade feet stepped on is a lotus. Yi then flew straight towards Xiao Yang. Taking the lotus leaf, an icy feeling hit, and then it was carefully placed into the ring, as if she was carefully looking at what Su Shuiying said. The lifespan of a normal person is 100 years, excluding birth, old age, sickness and death, and the lifespan of a strong Dodi is also quite long. 100 years is only 1/5, and the appearance of a strong Dodi will also last until it reaches 400. It will only age after a few years. Emperor Do has a long lifespan of 500 years. It is said that the lifespan of breaking through Do Immortal will increase to 1,000 years. In 100 years, it would be enough for a normal person to break through 4 or 5 stars on the basis of the original Dodi, but this is only for normal people. It is quite difficult to improve each level of a Dodi powerhouse. It can take a few years in the short term and decades in the long run. Xiao Yang's current strength is the peak of the 3-star Dodi, and he is still quite a distance away from that Dozian. The distance. As a result, the 100-year agreement is only 1/5 of the time for the Dodi strong, but it will soon pass. Xiao Yang is only in his 30s now. Even after 100 years, he still looks like a young man, which is a good time for cultivation. Why don't you just promise her, Xiao Yanzi? You should also know that the breakthrough from the peak of Samsung Dodi to Dozian in 100 years is nothing but nonsense to others, but you are different. You are practicing Fenju. You can make continuous progress with the help of the power of Holy Flame. This agreement is not too bad. The Golden Dragon King is a dragon family, and the Golden Dragon King has the purest blood power. For him, 100 years' time is just a nap time. Hearing what his master, the Golden Dragon King, said, Xiao Yang couldn't help but have black lines all over his head. Sure enough, the lifespan of the demon beasts and dragons is very long. How are you thinking? Su Shuiying looked at Xiao Yang, whose complexion was constantly changing. I promise you. 100 years agreement. Xiao Yang also looked at Su Shuiying with a smile. Some things must be protected with enough strength. This point does not need Su Shuiying and her master Jin Longwang to tell Xiao Yang that Xiao Yang also knows that what he has suffered on Dudi continent does not want to come again. Then it's settled. Su Shuiying is also happy to see this state, otherwise if Xiao Yang insists on arguing for the blood of the emperor, then a war will inevitably be fought. Although she is not afraid of Xiao Yang, it is always the case. The people of the Xiao clan, even if they are a little weaker. Boom. The moment the two of them spoke, the stone room was swaying as if it was about to be stomped. In this case, the little girl will take the first step, and there will be a period later. Su Shuiying said. The green lotus on her feet also exuded bursts of cyan flames, wrapping Su Shuiying, and then she tore out a small space with her hands, a string of smoke. Entering it, he disappeared into the stone room. Goodbye, breaking through to Dozian in 100 years, I think it's nonsense. I will naturally shoulder that thing for you. Su Shuiying muttered to herself when she entered the space crack. However, these words were listened to by the Golden Dragon King without a word, and then passed on to Xiao Yang as they were. Damn. What about cheating labor and capital? Xiao Yang was also furious when he heard this. Ha ha ha, Xiao Yanzi, don't worry, I said that you can achieve it if you can. At that time, this arrogant woman will have to re-examine you. The Golden Dragon King also laughed loudly. Xiao Yang was slightly angry, and then he calmed down after cultivation. A bright smile appeared on his originally ugly face, and he slowly opened his mouth while staring at the place where Su Shuiying disappeared. Since you think I can't reach it, then I'll show it to you. 30 years in Hadong and 30 years in Hashi, don't bully the poor. Not to mention 100 years. Master, let's go too. Since the emperor's blood has been taken away, the ruins are about to collapse. Xiao Yang also looked at the space that was about to collapse, and then waved his palm. The many precious medicinal materials in the stone chamber were received the ring on his finger. Go! Little Yanzi, you actually left such a precious thing here? The Golden Dragon King also laughed and scolded. Could it be? Hearing this, Xiao Yang also looked around at the bare stone room, and then turned his gaze to the place where the frozen skeleton was. The originally frozen skeleton also slowly melted after Su Shuiying left. The blood of the emperor who provided the energy was taken away. The skeleton also lost its vitality and was bleak. The power of. That's right, this skeleton of a strong man who is as strong as the peak of the 7-star Do Emperor will also be of great use in the future. If nothing else, just resurrecting and refining the body, this emperor's skeleton is a good thing that can't be found, plus with other tyrannical materials, if the refining is successful, the strength is also terrifying. The Golden Dragon King also looked at the jade-white complete skeleton thoughtfully. Resurrection? Hearing the words of his master, the Golden Dragon King, Xiao Yang was also stunned for a moment, and then he remembered an important event in Dochi continent. Now I am just a remnant soul, and even from a certain point of view, even the remnant soul is not a bit of a remnant. If it wasn't for the strangeness of the heavenly tomb, I would have dissipated between heaven and earth early on. Resurrection, I am afraid it should be impossible. Is there really no way? At least I don't know how to revive me. Maybe the legendary Dodi can do it. Xiao Xian shook his head with a smile, looked at Xiao Yang in front of him, the smile on his face suddenly became softer, and said, You can achieve such an achievement without relying on the power of blood. To be honest, it makes me quite gratified. The boy of my Xiao clan is always extraordinary. Xiao Yang still remembers the time when he met his ancestor Xiao Xian in Tianmu, and with the help of the latter he regained the power of the Xiao family's bloodline, and then stepped into the soul of the emperor with the help of his ancestor. Thinking of these, I can't help but recall the scene when I was in the sky. Master, when I was on the Dochi continent, I lost an ancestor. If I want to revive him. His own master, the Golden Dragon King, was also an absolutely trustworthy person, so Xiao Yang gave it all. The things of the ancient times are irrelevant, and no one understands why it is so difficult to cultivate to the level of Do Di. When the ancestor Xiao Xian reached the peak of the late 9-star Do Sheng, he tried to attack that illusory level, but in the end however, in those repeated failures, the ancestors also made a discovery. Back then, the strength of the ancestors was enough to really hit the Emperor Do. However, every time the ancestors were about to break through the barrier, a feeling of emptiness would emerge from the depths of the soul, this feeling of emptiness. Let the ancestors understand that in the process of attacking the Emperor Do level, I seem to be missing something. This kind of thing is extremely critical. If I can get it, breaking through to the Emperor Do should not be false. When the Golden Dragon King heard the words, the amount of information was a bit large, and then he frowned slightly, thinking about what Xiao Yang just said in his mind. This little Yanzi came from the same plane as the ancient Emperor Tuorsha. With the life and death relationship between the Golden Dragon King and Tuorsha, it is natural to know that the Do-Chi continent lacks the original source Chi to attack the Emperor. Power does not exist for an upper plane like Do-Di continent. Moreover, Do-Chi continent is a lower plane. All cultivation starts from the bottom Do-Chi, Do-Chi, Doja, Dosha, Da Dosha, Do-Ling, Do-Wang, Do-Huang, Do-Zong, Do-Zun, Do-Zun Holy, Do-Di. Among so many ranks, Xiao Yanzi, the ancestor Xiao Xuanling, cultivated to the peak of Do-Chi continent, the peak of the late 9-star Dosheng, and found that he still lacked a vital source Qi to attack the Do Emperor. From this kind, it is enough to see given the extraordinariness of this person, even with the critical eyes of the Golden Dragon King, he could not help but respect Xiao Yanzi, his ancestor. Resurrection is not impossible. Refining the body is a skill of your pharmacists. The Golden Dragon King also said slowly. Hearing this, Xiao Yang's eyes also became hot. The ancestor Xiao Shen had some kind of grace for Xiao Yang, 3 mysterious transformations of heavenly fire. The terrifying power of flame emanated from Xiao Yang's body, and then Xiao Yang was urging the blood vessels in his body, and a mysterious rune slowly appeared on his forehead. The mysterious Xiao Clan rune appeared, and then a small grey light spot also fell from Xiao Yang's forehead to his palm. Looking at this imprint of life, Xiao Yang also let out a sigh of relief, lowered his head, and glanced at the Golden Dragon King who was floating in front of him. This grey mark of life is impressively when Xiao Yang was in the sky. Looking at the place where Xiao Shen disappeared, he murmured softly, and immediately stretched out his palm, facing the empty space lightly. He held it lightly, and with the grip of his palm, an invisible grey light spot that ordinary people could not see appeared in his hand. This is Xiao Shen's life imprint. This kind of life imprint can only be entered by the soul. Only the powerhouse of the Emperor realm can see it, otherwise, even if his Do-Chi has reached the late stage of the 9-star Dosheng, he will not be able to sense this mysterious existence. From a certain point of view, the original Xiao Shen has basically disappeared. The supreme powerhouse who once dominated the Do-Chi continent has completely dissipated in this world. However, this is for Xiao who has stepped into the soul of the Emperor for Yang. This is not the case. This imprint of life may be able to give Xiao Shen life again, but this method, even Xiao Yang, whose soul entered the Emperor realm when he was in Do-Chi continent, could not do it. Perhaps, when he truly enters the legendary Do-Di realm in the future, he will be able to do so. In the palm of his hand, the invisible imprint of life slowly rose, and the queen got into Xiao Yang's eyebrows, guarded by his vast soul power like heaven and earth. Perhaps, after a long time, this man gave everything for the Xiao family. The old man can also reappear in the world. This is always a kind of hope. Although it is far away, it makes people's hearts burn. However, although Xiao Yang did not have the ability to revive the ancestor Xiao Shen at the beginning, but now Xiao Yang has broken through the shackles of Do-Di, successfully promoted to Do-Di, and his soul power is also improving. I believe that the resurrection ancestor Xiao Shen will not be able to is nonsense. Master, what materials do you need to refine the body in this Do-Di continent? Xiao Yang also found that the Do-Di continent and Do-Chi continent were unusual, so he suddenly remembered what he had promised ancestor Xiao Shen, and then said directly. Xiao Yang clearly remembers that although he used to be Venerable Tianhua on Do-Chi continent, his master, Venerable Yarrow, refined his body. At that time, when refining the body, it needed the flames from the fusion of 3 different fires, and the required pills were of extremely high rank, and the blood essence of the beasts was also extremely domineering, so the refining was successful. But their strength is not as strong as their ancestor Xiao Shen. The more powerful the soul needs, the more stringent the body is, otherwise the refined body will not be able to accommodate the powerful force and will explode in an instant, and it will be in vain in the end. After all, only a tyrannical body has the strength to return to the peak after resurrection. The strength of the body restricts the potential of future cultivation, so this matter cannot be sloppy. The strength of your ancestor Xiao Shen Joshing Dosheng's peak in the late stage is enough to show that he is also a gifted person, so the refined body can't be too ordinary. Now that you have the bones of this emperor, you need to cooperate with some medicinal materials. The refined body is also extremely perfect. The Golden Dragon King also stood in front of Xiao Yang and stared at the emperor's bones with satisfaction. Hearing that, Xiao Yang's eyes lit up. If the emperor's bones are the main body to cooperate with many high-level medicinal pills, then the resurrected ancestor Xiao Xian has a great possibility to break through the Do Sheng and directly hit the 7 stars. Do Di peak. Even if the ancestor Xiao Xian's soul itself is only the strength of the peak of Do Sheng, but that body is the peak of the 7-star Do Emperor, a genuine peak powerhouse of the 7-star Do Di. Even on this Shenling continent, he can become the mainstay of a detached force, and he is a character who can walk sideways. Xiao Yang thought so passionately in his heart, and then he also put his eyes on the jade-white skeleton in front of him. Xiao Yang's careful thinking was naturally discovered by his master, the Golden Dragon King, and then he rolled his eyes and said, "Look what makes you happy, isn't it a peak powerhouse of the 7-star Do Di? There is no prospect at all." Xiao Yang is also full of black lines. Although he vaguely knows that his master, the Golden Dragon King, must be very powerful, the powerhouse at the peak of the 7-star Do Di is also a symbol of a powerhouse. As valuable as it is, there was a moment of speechlessness. "Okay, you put away the bones of the emperor first, and I'll tell you in detail. Remember to wrap it in your flame." The Golden Dragon King was also speaking. Hearing this, Xiao Yang's pupils shrank tightly, and then he thought to himself, although this emperor's skeleton is powerful, it has been burning like this by his own strange fire, will it burn out? Although this strange fire of my own is not comparable to the power of the holy flame of the Do Di continent, its power is also very important. Such precious bones are hard to come by. Xiao Yang's distraction naturally couldn't escape the eyes of his master, the Golden Dragon King, and then the Golden Dragon King said in a very contemptuous tone, "Cut, with the power of your flames, you still want to burn the bones of the emperor? Don't dream. You can use your power of flame to strike with all your might, and you won't be able to break the bones of the emperor." Xiao Yang also scratched his head in embarrassment when he heard the words, and then the milky white flame instantly enveloped the bones of the emperor. "Senior is offended," Xiao Yang said abruptly, then bowed deeply. Without hesitation, the milky white flame skeleton in front of him turned into a beam of light and strung into the ring on Xiao Yang's finger. After doing all this, Xiao Yang nodded and said with a chuckle, "Master, now I have merged 23 kinds of different fires, and I am still a first-order emperor-grade pharmacist, as strong as a 7-star fighting emperor peak powerhouse. The bones are also available, so is it possible to refine the body that accommodates the soul for the ancestors?" Hearing Xiao Yang's words, the Golden Dragon King was stunned, and immediately felt a little relieved. He touched Xiao Yang's head, changed his appearance, and said with a smile, "The normal body refining is quite simple, but refining Do Di is strong. The materials needed for the victim's body are too rare and even terrifying, so this matter cannot be rushed. Even if he is as powerful as the Golden Dragon King, he is eager to be reborn." Although Xiao Yang is still very weak in front of him, the Golden Dragon King believes that the person in front of him will one day bring him back to life. After all, no one's soul would be willing to live in the darkness of the sky, and the Golden Dragon King still has his own things to do. "What materials do I need? Now I also have the title of Elder in the Qingcheng Alchemist Association. With the addition of the Yu family, maybe I can let them search?" Xiao Yang asked. "These things can't be obtained by searching." The Golden Dragon King gave a wry smile, but looking at Xiao Yang's earnest gaze, he nodded helplessly and said, "I want to refine something that can hold the soul of your ancestors. If you have a body, and resurrect your ancestors, the most important thing is not many, but 4 things are needed." Seeing the 4 fingers stretched out by his master, the Golden Dragon King, Xiao Yang also hurriedly focused and listened. First, create a blood-shaping pill. Second, the bloodline of the blood of the 7th grade emperor-ranked warcraft. Third, the skeleton of a Do Di strong man. Fourth, the soul of the resurrected person, even if it is a shard imprint, as long as it has the power of the soul. Hearing that 4 things slowly popped out of the mouth of his master, the Golden Dragon King, Xiao Yang's original fiery expression gradually changed to sluggishness. Plastic health-building blood pill? This thing is that Xiao Yang's first-class alchemist does not know it at all, but fortunately, he knows from his well-informed master Jinlongwang this is the 3rd-order peak of the dignified emperor. And even able to step into the top of the imperial medicine pill, the legendary super elixir that can immediately save the living dead as long as there is still a drop of blood. The 1st-order emperor-grade medicinal pills are further divided into the 3rd-grade Tiandi Xian, followed by the 2nd-grade emperor-grade, Tiandi Xian, and then the 3rd-grade emperor-grade. The improvement of a pharmacist, his strength, and his soul power are inseparable, and this first one alone stumped Xiao Yang. The bloodline of the 7th grade Emperor ranked Warcraft. This is astonishingly the same strength as the peak powerhouse of the 7-star Do Emperor in front of him. In front of the 7-star Do Emperor peak powerhouse, even escaping is particularly difficult. Could it be that you allow yourself to kill a monster that is comparable to the human 7-star Do Emperor peak powerhouse? Not sure who kills who? A monster of this level is not a one-sided overlord, and it is not something that Xiao Yan can afford now. The first rank of the Warcraft Emperor is like a human 1-star fighting emperor, but it is not known who is stronger or weaker in the real competition. The skeleton of a strong fighting emperor? There is a ready-made one in front of this one, which saves Xiao Yang a lot of trouble. Otherwise, would it be possible that Xiao Yang would have to slaughter a 7-star Do Emperor peak powerhouse? The soul imprint of the ancestor Xiao Shen, this Xiao Yang already has it. Although there is still a long way to go before the blood of monsters and the blood-shaping pill, but the 2 of the 4 materials are already available, Xiao Yang also nodded slightly. Having a goal is better than blindly looking for it. My master is knowledgeable, and according to this material to prepare, the resurrection day of the ancestor Xiao Shen is not far away. Looking at Xiao Yang, whose face was full of surprise, the Golden Dragon King also slowly said with relief, "This son really has a heart." Looking at Xiao Yang's stunned expression, the Golden Dragon King also smiled. He knew how shocking these 4 materials were to Xiao Yang, so he was not surprised, he just smiled and comforted. "These things are extremely difficult to obtain, so I said don't be in a hurry. Your ancestors should be very relieved that you have this heart. Anyway, it's still a long time, we can do it slowly." His face gradually recovered. After a while, Xiao Yang smiled bitterly, feeling a little dizzy in his head. The essence bloodline of the 7th grade Emperor ranked beasts is the super powerhouse equivalent to the 7-star fighting Emperor powerhouse, and the essence bloodline is the beasts. The thing that survives and grows is like the blood and marrow in the human body. If this thing is extracted from the body of the beast, the latter will naturally lose his life immediately. Therefore, if you want to get the 7th rank the bloodline of Warcraft's essence, then it is necessary to kill a super beast that is comparable to a 7-star Do. And this level of Warcraft, from birth to now, Xiao Yang has never even seen a single time. Let alone a kill. The so-called blood-shaping pill is not a simple thing. For the pills of the 3rd order peak of the Emperor, I am afraid that even the current president of the Qingcheng Alchemist Association will not be able to guarantee success, let alone. There are all kinds of strange and rare medicinal materials for refining the blood-shaping pills, and it is a great trouble to collect these things. With a bitter expression on his face, he nodded, and resurrecting the ancestor Xiao Shen really wasn't that simple. Xiao Yang sighed and said, "I will keep this matter in my heart and look for opportunities in the future to find a way to complete the remaining 2 materials. It wouldn't be so troublesome to refine a body that an ordinary soul can accommodate, but the stronger the soul power and the strength of your ancestor Xiao Shen during his lifetime, the more stringent the requirements for the body will be. And I forgot to tell you that the most fundamental thing for refining the body is the fire of holy flame." The Golden Dragon King smiled and said, "Holy flame?" Hearing this, Xiao Yang's mood that had calmed down was also becoming more surprising. The most fundamental thing to refine the body actually needs the fire of holy flame. Xiao Yang also looked at his master Jinlong King floating in the air with surprise. "Good. If it is an ordinary Do Zun and Do Sheng level body, it can be made with the flames in your body, but the body of a strong Do D is different. When you are promoted to Do D, you will be promoted successfully by absorbing the origin of the Emperor, and this origin of the Emperor has tempered the body, so that you can truly step into the Do Di. If you compare the body that can accommodate the peak of the 9-star Do Sheng to 10, it is enough to accommodate Do Di. The body of an emperor is 100. The Golden Dragon King said solemnly. Hearing this, Xiao Yang also carefully recalled what his master Jinlong King said. "And your current power of flame is not enough to refine the bones of the peak 7-star Do Emperor in your hand, and refining the body, the sooner the better, otherwise, the blood of the beasts will be exhausted and the medicine pill will take a long time. If the medicinal power disappears, then it is a failure," the Golden Dragon King said in a very calm tone. Indeed, in terms of Xiao Yang's current power of different fires, it would take several days to refine the bones of the peak powerhouses of the 7-star Do Emperor. On the one hand, the strength of the Emperor's skeleton in his lifetime was extremely terrifying, and the skeleton that formed him after death was powerful. It is also quite laborious to transform. Moreover, even if the rarity of the holy flame is compared to that of the strange fire, it is not too much. Whether it can be subdued or not is another matter, and all of these are enough to explain how hard the holy flame is to be found. Damn. It's really twists and turns. Xiao Yang couldn't help cursing after hearing that his master Jinlong King said this. But don't worry. When the matter in Qingcheng here is over, I will slowly guide you to find the holy flame that sits on this profound spirit continent. I just don't know how he is now. The Golden Dragon King also looked at Xiao Yang, who was a little depressed, and said comfortably, "Huh." Xiao Yang suddenly became excited when he heard the words, and then looked at his master, the Golden Dragon King, with fiery eyes. "Hey, don't try to tell me what to say, you kid. I know Xingyang, and I also know about your family, but I just won't tell you." The Golden Dragon King laughed. Xiao Yang's eyes returned to normal immediately, and then rolled his eyes at his master, the Golden Dragon King. "When you are strong enough, I will naturally tell you one by one. As for now, let's go out of the ruins first." Looking at the stone room that was collapsing more and more, the Golden Dragon King also said, "Yeah." Xiao Yang also knew that what his master Jinlong King said was true. Even though he had many mysteries, he had no strength. Boom! Pieces of boulders fell from the stone chamber. In the stone room of the emperor, the blood was taken, and the bones were obtained by the destined people. It also lived up to the wish of this senior. While thinking about the milky white vindictiveness that enveloped the whole body, he waved his right hand fiercely, a space crack. It appeared in front of Xiao Yang. Of course, there is a ban on suppressing the strong in this ruin, so that the strong who surpass the 4-star Do Emperor cannot step into it, so even the space crack cannot be torn out, but with the loss of the Emperor's bones and blood essence, the ban is also slowly losing its strength. Time to go. Without hesitation, it turned into a milky white meteor and streaks into the crack in space. Half a month has passed since the opening of the World of Warcraft ruins. After being persuaded to retreat by the 7 major cities, they did not dare to step into the ruins, but everyone knew that this Xiao Yang was enough to obtain the largest number of the ruins. Therefore, the current Xiao Yang is also the mortal enemy of many of the heaven's favorites in the 7 cities. Especially that Wucheng Wuhuan, who is even more worried about Xiao Yang being dressed in white on demand, and rumored to deal with Xiao Yang. As soon as the beast ruins came out, I could hear the roars of some monsters from time to time, was apparently sent out to fight for turf. A young man with a weak figure, with a dark heavy ruler on his back, was walking alone in this beast mountain range. This trip to the ruins is also a worthwhile trip, the strength of the peak of the Samsung Do-di. In addition, you can carry this heavy ruler with you. I have dealt with it for you. It usually looks like a bland black heavy ruler. This heavy ruler can suppress your breath. The strength of the peak of Samsung Do-di has been suppressed to in the middle of the 3-star Do-di, and when you take off this heavy ruler to fight against others, the power of the heavy ruler will increase sharply in an instant, which will undoubtedly be one of your means, and this heavy ruler is also really extraordinary. The Golden Dragon King is also satisfied. Nodded. Xiao Yang can also feel that this ancient ruler of different fires, which is formed by the fusion of 23 kinds of different fire powers, is definitely not simple. Before, his current strength was limited, and he could not explore the mysteries. Let's go back to Qingcheng first. I don't know what happened to Qing Yuan's little girl. The Golden Dragon King was also talking. Hand over that so-called great creation. I can consider to spare you not to die. There was a figure in front of Xiao Yang, and the huge red battle qi roared out, like a cloud of fire, and on the cloud of fire, a slender figure stood with his hands behind his back. With a look of contempt, he turned his eyes to the young man with heavy feet on his back. Isn't this the martial magic that Wucheng is known as the heaven's favorite son? Xiao Yang was also surprised. The number of times he and this martial magician had met with a single slap could be counted. Shouldn't there be a festival? Hearing this, Xiao Yang also cast his eyes on the big tree where the voice came from, and saw a slender figure standing with his hands behind his back, red do qi roaring out and surrounding him. What did your excellency mean? Xiao Yang also said coldly. According to Yueru's words, the man in front of him was Wu Huan, the arrogant son of Wucheng, but his strength was also a powerhouse in the late Samsung Do-di. However, what Xiao Yang saw about the latter half a month ago was only in the late stage of the 3-star Do-di, and now he can see some clues from the fluctuation of his Do-chi. It is also the pinnacle of Samsung Do-di. This should be some treasure harvested in the ruins, which led to the improvement of the strength to the level of the peak of the 3-star Do-di. Otherwise, it would not be so easy to advance through training. However, even though this martial arts is also the pinnacle of the 3-star fighting emperor, Xiao Yang is not afraid at all. Without further ado, although I don't know what you have to do with the mysterious guardian in white, this is the territory of my Wucheng. Hand over your good fortune. Wu Huan also slowly jumped down from a big tree, and then looked at the former coldly as if he was stunned by Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this. Afterwards, he also knew that although he could be recognized by a white robe before, the so-called good fortune did not need any flame power to absorb it. Being too powerful, Rao Yi, the pride of the 7 cities, could not do anything, so he had no choice but to withdraw from the ruins. As for Xiao Yang being left behind by a white robe, although the fire elf's contribution is inevitable, there are also some personal feelings in a white robe. Although I don't know why, Xiao Yang always feels that this white robe seems to be the same as his own. The fire spirit in the body has some origins, but Xiao Yi is also in a state of degeneration, and Xiao Yang has no way to ask. Wu Huan, you can really talk nonsense. This is clearly the demonic beast mountains, so why is it your Wucheng's territory? And why should I hand over the good fortune I obtained with my own strength? Did your brain get caught in the door? Xiao Yang also happily looked at the aloof martial arts. Others might be afraid of his status as the young city master of Wucheng, but Xiao Yang would not. After all, this Qingcheng is just a rest stop for Xiao Yang. Worry-free and worry-free? Okay, Xiao Yang, do you really think we are fools? You worked so hard to defeat the 6 guardians of the emperor, but let you come to pick up this great deal? The smile on Wu Huan's face also gradually changed. Solidified. Xiao Yang also smiled lightly when he heard the words. It turned out that this Wu Huan turned out to be a person who would retaliate against Jezhen. Since you don't hand it over, then just die. Being buried in the depths of the demonic beast mountains is also your perfect destination. Don't worry, my Wu Huan has searched this area for hundreds of miles, and now there is no one else here except you and me. Wu Huan couldn't help roaring loudly. Oh! Xiao Yang was still a little worried. This place is also very close to the martial city. If one accidentally attracts the strong in the martial city, it will be troublesome, but now hearing Wu Huan say this, he can't help but feel relieved. Since your martial fantasy wants to kill me to get good luck, let's see if you have the ability, Xiao Yang also said with relief. Accept the call. Fire killing palm. As soon as the shouting fell, Wu Huan just showed his body, and after a few flashes, he arrived in front of Xiao Yang and blasted out from the air with one hand and one palm. The terrifying strong wind directly ripped out the dark cracks in the space. Looking at the fierce attack from Wu Huan in front of him, it also changed Xiao Yang's complexion. Although this Wu Huan said that he would be punished, his strength should not be underestimated, nor should the dignified young city master of Wu City be underestimated. To say that it is late is fast. In the face of such a terrifying strong wind, it is possible that Xiao Yang will forcefully take it down. It is not that he cannot resist it, but it is not necessary. At the moment, Xiao Yang's body twisted strangely, and several afterimages appeared in the air. A few afterimages are impressively the manifestation of the highest realm that Sanqian Lei Dong has cultivated. Dangerously, he avoided several strong winds, and after Wu Huan made his attack, his speed was also slowed down. Intercepting Wu Huan's terrifying attack, Xiao Yang swept his body and grabbed Wu Huan's forehead. Xiao Yang has always been that people don't commit crimes against me, and I don't commit crimes. Since this martial arts fantasy is going to kill him, there is no need for him to show mercy. It just so happens that there is no one here. Bastard, caught death. Seeing this scene, Wu Huan's face was full of anger. He didn't expect that Xiao Yang was also a ruthless person. Grabbing the palm of his hand, a suction force burst out from the palm of his hand, and it directly uprooted a big tree behind it. The figure condensed in mid-air for a moment, and the big tree in the sky instantly pressed against his forehead to prevent Xiao fire attack. Xiao Yang saw that he also took advantage of the body's shape and took the lead. With a big hand, he grabbed the tree in the sky, but before he could pull it hard, the fierce and unparalleled wind was coming from behind the ball. He smashed his head hard. Feeling the fierce wind behind him, Xiao Yang also smiled slightly, and then a beautiful 23-color fire lotus seed appeared in his hand. Xiao Yang also found that since breaking through to the peak of the 3-star Do Di, his signature method, the fire lotus seeds fused with 23 kinds of different fires, has become perfect with practice, and can be condensed in an instant when his mind moves, which is also faster than before. It's a lot faster, but Xiao Yang also found out that even if the Buddha's Fury Lotus is formed by the fusion of many different fire powers, the suppression that can be obtained against the same level of power is getting smaller and smaller, and it is in the fight. On the mainland, Buddha's Fury Huolian has always been a signature method that can surpass the ranks and decide the outcome, but it is a little difficult to deal with the powerhouses of the same level on the Dodi continent. As a result, Xiao Yang has always had a vague guess in his heart, It seems that the strange fire in his body has been exhausted since he came to Dodi continent, as if it was in a dormant period. In other words, there seems to be something missing from the fire. Otherwise, the different fire and the holy flame belong to the power born between heaven and earth. How could the gap be so big? During the battle, it was too late to be distracted, and then he raised the Buddha's furious fire lotus in his hand and smashed it viciously at the Wu Huan in front of him. The Buddha's furious fire lotus roared away at Wu Huan. Wu Huan also shrank his pupils tightly, and then his fiery red grudge swept out in a frenzy to resist. Because Wu Huan is also a powerhouse at the peak of the 3-star Dodi, better than he felt a terrifying aura above this delicate Buddha's wrath fire lotus. At this time, Wu Huan had only one thought in his heart. If he was infected with the power of this fire lotus, then his fate would only be one. This video will end here.